I wanted to explore a question. I have a lot of questions about metal fans. Have you ever asked yourself why metal fans are the way they are and why they like what they like? You ever want to just take a metal fan aside and put your arm around them and be like, hey man, I just got to ask you a question. Why are you like this? Why are you? Have you ever wondered that? I know I have. Just, there's a lot of things about metal fans that make me scratch my head and ask questions. One of them being that what I noticed a few years ago is that metal fans really don't care about lyrics or vocals in general. And I thought it'd be interesting to ask why. Because, you know, in a lot of ways, the metal people, they're kind of the opposite of normal humans, right? Whatever they like, normal people hate. Whatever normal people like, they hate. It occurred to me, I made this video about Gojira. I've never understood why they love Gojira so much, because I've always thought that Gojira was like a perfectly good band. But to me, you know, their songs never really grabbed me all that much. I think like they're cool, but they never really grabbed me. And I always wondered, like, what is up with this band? Why do people just absolutely worship Gojira? Again, not that there's anything wrong with them. I think they're a solid band, but they're one of these bands that, like, you don't just like Gojira. You know, the people that listen to Gojira, like, worship Gojira, right? Worship them. They act like Gojira is like the best band of all time. And what I realized is that very simply, it comes down to the riffs, right? Like, metal fans are into riffs. With all due respect to Joe, he's not an exceptional vocalist or anything like that. And they don't really have any vocal hooks or choruses. They don't really even have like vocal melodies. So, I mean, that's the only thing you could like about Gojira is the riffs and the grooves, which are great, right? They are great. But for me, when I think about, you know, the metal that I have, you know, really loved and that I would, you know, elevate as like the pinnacle of the genre, I think about, you know, like Slipknot, Pantera, Metallica, Anthrax, you know, Ozzy, all of the stuff that you think of as being kind of the true greats of all time in metal all have really strong vocals, very charismatic, good frontmen as well. But yeah, Avenged Sevenfold, I think, yeah, they have good vocal hooks. So that's what I realized, is that metal fans just kind of listen with a different ear. And I'm not here to tell anybody what they should or shouldn't like. Like, you know, if you listen to music for riffs and like that's what your brain responds to, that's totally cool. You know, there's nothing wrong with that at all. And I'm not telling you to stop liking Gojira or anything else. I'm not trying to change your mind about anything. But what I would like to do is maybe just present another point of view of, like, just talk about different ways that we listen to music, because I started to really appreciate pop when I learned more about vocals and melody and things like that. It made me listen to music differently. And ever since I started hearing it that way, it's really made me appreciate a lot of music that I never appreciated before. So I thought it'd be interesting to kind of have this conversation a little bit. And of course, if you want the representation of what metal people think, then Reddit is the place to go. So I think this is like a pretty good representation of how I think a lot of people think about it. When I first got into metal, Slipknot, Parkway Drive, etc., I never used to care about the lyrics that much and just loved the way the songs sounded with the vocals and instruments. Then when I heard my first deathcore song, it was the same and blew my mind. I couldn't get enough, but these days I have a hard time distinguishing songs, as to me a lot of them sound the same, and instead of finding songs I like every few days, it's now every few months until I find one song I can actually listen to. If I find a song with lyrics I like and find it good or funny, I enjoy the song a lot more. I feel the same. Anyone ever experienced this loss of interest and no way to overcome it, or overcome being able to get over just the lyrics or vocals? Thanks in advance. So this person, I thought this one was very interesting. This is a very good illustration of how I think metal people sort of listen. This person said, real talk, I care about the musicality and how the vocal style fits into the song more than the lyrics. Like if I'm listening to Impending Doom, I'd much rather hear what Brooke Reeves sounds like rather than what he's saying. If I want to sing along to a song, sure, I'll look up the lyrics, but other than that, I'll just be there for the sound. So I thought this was pretty interesting. And it sort of reveals something that I have discovered about metal people is that they think of it as two separate things. There's like the music and the vocals, or as this person put it, the musicality. So to them, these are two separate things. Like lyrics and vocals, that's not the music. The music is the riffs, right? Like that's the building block of metal, is the riff. The lyrics and the vocals are there, but like you don't really care that much. You just care about the riffs. And I find that very interesting because to a normal person, to normal people, it's the opposite. Sort of the classical approach to songwriting. And I don't mean classical in the sense of classical music, but like the classic approach to songwriting is that the song is the lyrics and the melody. Like if you think of like a Madonna song or something, Like a Prayer, or I don't know, Taylor Swift or something like that. In most genres, the vocals, the lyrics, and the melody are the song, and everything else is just there to support the vocals, right? To like bring the vocals to life, basically. Whereas in metal, it's the opposite. And again, I'm not saying this is right or wrong. We don't get to decide what our brain enjoys hearing, but I do think it's interesting how it's kind of the opposite. Gojira would be a great example of that. Like, yes, Joe is singing, but that's not the focal point of the song. And I just find it very interesting that they kind of seem to sort of put vocals in a different category than the music. Yes, music without lyrics can be emotional too, but I think most people have a harder time connecting with that versus lyrics. I think that's true. It makes me wonder why there aren't more just straight instrumental metal bands. Obviously, vocals matter somewhat, otherwise it'd be all instrumental acts. I agree with this. To me, metal music is very similar to tribal music, more about feeling the music and moving to the rhythm. I would say that metal to me is more like EDM, like electronic music. Like if you look at this crowd right here that we're watching, to me, this looks like Tomorrowland or EDC or Ultra, or like any of these big outdoor electronic music festivals, right? Because it's so much about like the live experience with a bunch of other people and feeling like moved by like the actual like physical rhythm of the music. I think metal actually has a lot more in common with EDM in that way. And there are vocals in EDM. There's like a sample, stuff like that. But it's about the beat. It's about the rise and the drop and the rhythm and making you dance and stuff. The other thing that I think is kind of interesting that this person said, I don't care about lyrics at all. I don't even know what my favorite bands are singing about. To me, the vocals are just another instrument. I think that's the case as well for a lot of metal people. The vocals are not the focus of the song. They're just another element of it, the same way as, the snare drum or the bass guitar or the synths or anything else, just like a texture, especially in more extreme genres where you can't really understand anything they're saying, right? Like, whatever, Cannibal Corpse or something like that. I remember the first time I heard Cannibal Corpse, like I had never heard like vocals that low before. This is like 91, 92. I literally wasn't even sure if the vocals, I was like reading the lyric sheet and I was like, is he singing right now? All I can hear is this like really low gurgling sound. Is that the vocals? So like, even though you can kind of follow along the lyric sheet and hear what he's saying, not really, right? So it really is just textural. Like I think a lot of death metal bands don't even really have lyrics. They just make it up. I just wonder if the metalheads feel chuggy, wheedly in their souls the same way as I feel when a room full of 100 or 200 people shouting some seriously emotional shit together. I think they do. Yes. I think that they absolutely do feel that. And I think there's something just like different about the way that, metal fans, I think it's something different in their brains about what they react to. I really do. I think it's something neurological that's different in their brain. And that's not a bad thing by any means. But what I do think is interesting is if you look at the really big standout bands in the genre, like I mentioned before, Slipknot, Linkin Park, Ozzy, Pantera, all the legends, the biggest bands in metal all have great vocalists. And so I think there's two tiers of metal fans. There's like the real hardcore fans who are into bands like Gojira or Behemoth or something like that are, those are big bands for sure. But those are bands that, those are not like mainstream bands that were ever like, at the level of being on MTV as compared to Korn and Ozzy and stuff like that, that were able to break through on a level bigger than those, like, you know, core kind of quote unquote real metal bands ever could. So I think that even among metal fans, it still sort of shows you the power of great vocals and great lyrics and a great frontman. There's something in our brain that just connects with the human voice, which makes sense, right? Just from an evolutionary perspective, it makes sense that we would connect with the human voice. It's a Venn diagram of casual and hardcore metal fans, where casual fans prefer metal that has pleasing vocals. Yes, I think that's exactly what it is. The other thing, just from the perspective of a metal fan who, you know, if there's a metal fan that's watching this that doesn't already hate me and is not already starting a nasty thread on Reddit right now about me and how awful my opinions are. If you're wondering, okay, well, I'm interested, like, I want to see things your way, but I don't. Let me propose another way of looking at this, which, again, I'm not here to, you know, fight anybody's opinion or tell you to like or not like anything, but just my goal is to maybe just help somebody appreciate music that they didn't appreciate before. So I think one of the common threads among metal fans is that they're into like virtuosity, right? Like technical precision, technical ability. So what I would say is maybe think about it this way. In other genres like pop, there are some extremely technically gifted vocalists. Like there are no better vocalists than like pop and R&B. So maybe think about it this way. Think about it as like, well, metal has the most like technically gifted guitarists and drummers, which I think is true. I mean, in terms of like just being able to like shred your balls off, metal guitarists probably can do that better than anyone else. But I think pop and R&B vocalists are that. They probably have more technical ability. So if you're interested in like straight up just technical ability in terms of vocal shredding, you know, maybe check out some pop and R&B. For example, Whitney Houston, bad motherfucker. Here we go. I mean, listen to this fucking vocal performance. Jesus. So much control. Listen to this. This is Whitney Houston. She was like fucking 18 or 19 here. This is just the isolated vocal track from her from like 1984. She was like barely out of high school, and listen to how fucking good she could sing. I mean, this is incredible shit. Imagine being this good at something when you're fucking 19 years old. Great song, too. Another good example, of course, Ariana Grande. My girl. I know. Making the mistake of showing metalheads talented women. Worse, a talented woman who's black. Oh no. If metal fans heard someone play these same melodies and harmonies on guitar, they would lose their minds at how sick it would sound. Exactly. That's my point. So that's maybe another way to look at it. You know, if you are a metal fan, and like a lot of metal fans, you know, I think a lot of them value like technical skill and virtuosity. Well, this is basically the vocal equivalent of shred guitar, of somebody just busting out this crazy balls out sweet picked arpeggio solo, you know, for the sake of showing off that they can do it. So, you know, maybe that's another way to look at it. Either way, you know, my point here is not to say that there's anything right or wrong. Like, you know, you should like what you like, but I do think it's kind of interesting just that metal fans tend to sort of close themselves off to a whole lot of music simply because they've convinced themselves that if it doesn't have cool riffs, then they can't like it. And if that's what you like, you know, that's fine. You don't have to like it. But what I'm suggesting is, you know, maybe just go into it with an open mind, look at it differently, and just see if maybe you can appreciate it in a way that you never have before. That's my point here. Just, I would hope that perhaps somebody watching this maybe changed their mind and said, hey, you know what? Maybe vocals are kind of cool. Maybe it's not just all about guitars. Maybe it's not just all about drums. Vocals are cool and important too. And you've enlightened me, Mr. Mckenty. I take back all the horrible things I said about you on Reddit. Actually, vocals are kind of cool too. It's not all just about guitars. So that is all, friends. Maybe today we change some lives, people. We changed some lives, I hope. If just one metalhead goes pop, it was all worth it. Maybe it's the primal versus produce thing. Well, the thing about metal is that metal is the most overproduced genre of all. Metal has more in common with EDM in terms of production than anything else. Like, metal is very, 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 very produced. I know that people have this idea in their head that metal is like super raw and primal, but it's really not. Metal is fake. That's all there is to it. Metal is fake. And that's fine. But the way you produce metal now is the same way that you produce EDM. You know, you like edit and quantize and loop everything. You know, that's just how it is. So I think maybe people have some misconceptions about it's still real to me. Damn it. That's right. Exactly.